What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. I am Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, joined every Sunday by Terry McBride at Digital B21. What's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. It's a basketball-filled Sunday for me, despite the short slate. Wrote a ton of words in the deep dive and jumping kind of right into this after publishing that a little while ago. So psyched to talk it through. We've got a long time to discuss every aspect of every one of these three games. And yeah, it should be fun to dig into.
Well, let's make it happen, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that thumbs up. Hit it. Just don't even make me ask again, right? I know we only got like 200 people watching right now, so I'm 100% going to ask again. But you know, do your duty, get it out of the way now, and then you'll be clean for the rest of the show. You can kick back, relax, and not have to worry about it. But of course, only like 50% of people that watch our shows are subscribed to the channel. So remedy that wrong. If you hate it, just unsubscribe. You'll never have to hear from us again. That's the wonderful thing about YouTube. Unsubscribe, boom, we won't even show up anymore. But I don't think you'll want to. So subscribe, hit that notification bell. You'll always know when we go live, and hit that thumbs up just to show that big support to us here at Awesome. By the way, that's amazing. We got over 100 likes. That's like that's almost, that's like 40% of people watching. Just bam, right out of the gate, Terry. Told you, we got the best audience in the business.
We really do, and it's appreciated. You know, I know we've got people out there who enjoy probably refusing to click the thumbs up every time, but we get so many likes on these videos. It really does help us out, you guys. So we appreciate that, and the subscriptions as well. And when you come to the channels and when you come to the site and you subscribe to the site, make sure to jump in Slack and say hi to us. You know, we like talking to people. We like engaging with the crowd. It's a big part of my day and what I do and my responsibilities around the site. I set up a little side group, a little DFS 101 group in our public Slack now for people who are like just looking to get started with DFS and kind of looking to find things around the site. How do I use Fantasy Cruncher type questions? Had one of my guys in our little study group hit for $10,000 last night.
Beautiful.
Somebody just kind of getting started out in DFS. It makes me feel good, honestly, on a night where I didn't even play any lineups after all that chaos talking through it on Live Before Live. I just deleted my stuff last night. Did you play?
No, I didn't. Had a bit of a extended birthday weekend, so I was in no condition to play. But,
right on.
Yeah, it was a good time. And by the way, I know I can be annoying about that stuff, but I promise you I pay it forward. Whenever I watch a YouTube video, I always, first thing I do, if I actually like it, is hit that thumbs up. Wouldn't want you to do so if you didn't like it. Anyway, let's dive into this, Terry. We got 3 games to talk about. Plenty of time to cover all of this. And then coming up next, it's EMac Eric Lindquist taking you up till 7 p.m. Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this. We got Portland. We've got Toronto. One of these teams garnering massive ownership today. I mean, massive. I thought maybe throughout the day it would change a bit, but no. You have 5 players right now, 5 from the Toronto Raptors. We'll get to them right after Portland, but I just want to set the table a little bit here. 5 from the Toronto Raptors getting 30+% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you have 2 above 50, 1 above 45, and 5 above 22. So yes, the Toronto Raptors, very, very, very chalky team today. But first, let's talk, and by the way, facing a team that ranks dead last in defensive rating over the last month in the Blazers, who we'll jump into now. We got word during the strategy show this morning with Alex Baker and myself, Monday through Sunday, Monday through Sunday, 10 Eastern, every single day, totally free. Check that out. That Damian Lillard would be active. So as we look at this Portland team, it was without Lillard last game. McCollum underwhelmed a little bit. They are healthy coming into this tilt with the Toronto Raptors, which makes things a little interesting because you have Lillard at 9,800, but McCollum back. Yusuf Nurkic likely going to be limited, but he's back. But you've also got Nikola Jokic, specifically on DraftKings, only $600 more than Damian Lillard. And maybe you can play both, but the value isn't as bountiful as you might have thought it would be earlier in the day. So start us off, Terry. Portland Trailblazers, backcourt, Lillard, McCollum. What are we doing?
Yeah, so it's a complex slate in terms of, where are we getting money to pay for multiple stars? If we're trying to roster multiple stars, do we want to go into like a mid-range type construction where we're playing a lot of, the level type values and not really going starsy scrubsy? There's not a ton of pay down options that are viable. So it is kind of becoming a decision between some of these stars. Lillard is, right up near the top of the board. 31.6% usage player and 36.1 minutes per game across the entire season. Since McCollum's been back, it dipped down to 30.6, but that's still a massive usage share. Still Damian Lillard. I woke up anyway thinking we were going to be sweating this news, kind of coming up to lock, but it was nice of the DFS guys to give us this one after the chaos of yesterday. But yeah, knowing that Lillard's in, I assume that he's going to be full health, full run, get his usual amount of minutes, around 35, 36 minutes. And he looks like a pretty high end play for us, despite the heavy salary. I think we can go there. I don't think he's going to take too much off the top, just, playing alongside CJ. It's averaging, it's 7 games since Lillard's return. For the season, since McCollum's return, rather. For the season, he's averaged 30 points, 30 real-life points, and a 48.2 assist share. The assist share, maybe CJ takes a couple of those away, but it's also going to give him somebody, a reliable scorer to pass the ball to. So I think it balances out pretty well. He's even a reasonable rebounder for his role, 15.8% rebounding share. Not bad for a point guard like Lillard. You don't really expect a ton of rebounds out of him. So he does pretty well in some of the counting stats to go along with it. I see no real issues going to him here. He's owned pretty appropriately for the amount we're getting him in the optimal and our boom bust tool on both sites. So you're not squeezing a ton of leverage out of him by any means, but as one of our few strong pay up options, he's certainly on the slate. I think McCollum is probably a better play on both sites, outstripping him a little bit in terms of the optimal lineup rate. And we know what CJ McCollum is. He's been back 7 games now. He was seeing like mid 20s minutes the first few games, but he was over 36 minutes each of the last 3. Seems like he's pretty much fully back, averaging 19.9 real points over the full stretch, but 24.3 real points in the 3 most recent games where he was getting the full slate of runs, kicking in a 30.4 assist share. Just right there on all those marks. I think he's pretty underpriced for who we know CJ McCollum is at 7,900 on FanDuel, 8,000 on DK, and you get him at point guard and shooting guard over on DK. So there's flexibility, there's utility there. I think he's a little bit underowned on both sites as well. So I like both guards. If I had to gun to my head pick one, I think it would be McCollum.
What about Norman Powell? He would truly endeared himself to the Portland fans early on, right? But that was without Damian Lillard in his Blazers debut against an Orlando team that had just been gutted to trades, right? Norman Powell now is not exactly coming in at a steep discount. You've got Nurkic back, albeit very going to be limited, right? I think he was limited to 20 minutes in that first game. He did have 4 fouls early in the first half, but still Stotts could have decided to run him more in the second half, didn't do it. So I don't know, unless we have confirmation, I'm assuming Nurkic plays like 24, maybe 22. I don't know. We'll see. We'll pay attention. Hopefully there's some news. But with Norman Powell, he's just at a price point that feels a little bit restrictive on this slate. And he is getting a little bit of love, 13%, but on a 3-game slate, that's kind of negligible, Terry. On FanDuel, you've got McCollum and Damian Lillard. Granted, you have to play 2 at each of these positions, getting a lot of love, even Covington, but Powell just kind of falling by the wayside around 9%. So in his second game with the Blazers, first game playing alongside Lillard, is Norman Powell an afterthought for you?
I think so. Just based mostly on his, if we're looking at the upside available at that price, you mentioned he's kind of stuck in a weird price, particularly for a 3-game slate where we're just not going to need a $7,500 small forward. 6,600 small forward and shooting guard utility on DK gives him a little bit more range. He gets into some more of our optimal lineups, but he doesn't really still have the upside, even at the lower price against the relatively lower salary cap. So we're getting only sub 5% boom score probability out of him on both sites. It's a little concerning for the upside. So 3 games, we do just kind of need to roster just some raw point scoring guys at certain points. I just don't know that we're going to have the salary flexibility to make him one of those raw point scoring guys. He's a good player. He shoots 44% for the season from 3, but he requires a little bit more usage than the guy who was a 40% 3-point shooter who went out in the trade, Gary Trent Jr. He only needed 19% usage. Powell was getting 23.5 in Toronto. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of fits into the equation for Portland as they work him in now that they're at full strength with Lillard back for this one. So it's going to be interesting. He should see around 30 minutes. In general, 0.92 fantasy point per minute across all situations throughout kind of a chaotic year in Toronto. So there is some utility and he's probably going to produce around our median score, around our expectation, without much range on either end of that. He's probably not going to bust by too much. He's probably not going to hit too much of a ceiling score for us. So if you just want those raw points for that salary, you can plug and play him. He's just not one of the go-to upside options on a slate where we kind of need some of those.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things where you have a bunch of spread out usage in Toronto. We would always say this is a Raptors team, and we're going to get to them in just a second, but this is a Raptors team that I play a lot of times just play the cheaper option because so many of them are so similar in usage and in per minute production. Well, in Portland, you have Lillard, who has a 32.5% usage rate. McCollum has a career high 30% usage rate. Yusuf Nurkic is someone, again, less minutes, but still a 21, 22, 23% usage rate player. I still think Norman Powell is going to be involved very much so. And maybe it does cut into usage for Dame and McCollum, but I think he's going to struggle to get as much opportunity as he would have in Toronto. Maybe it stays the same, but even if it does, that would mean that 6,600 is a lot, even though he's played well this season. What are your thoughts on Robert Covington?
Yeah, I think he popped on the board. I wasn't really expecting to see him, and it looks like he's gone into some negative leverage territory on FanDuel, which starts to get concerning for me. Another guy with 6,400 puts him solidly in that mid-range. Power forward is a little light on FanDuel tonight. You get a little bit more viability on DK. I get a little concerned when a guy like him slips into that negative leverage. 0.83 fantasy points per minute across all situations this year. We know they're dealing with some new pieces in the rotation. So it'll just be interesting to see how things kind of shake out around him. And without much upside on the play, with a much lower overall point projection for a somewhat comparable salary on FanDuel and a pretty comparable salary on DK, I think I prefer Norman Powell in the combination just based on the ownership and the leverage that we're getting. If those are the two guys that I'm comparing in the question, I think Covington does have some general utility, on his own if we're not worried about the salary. Just in general, he sees a little bit of an uptick in his rebounding rate. It's pretty negligible overall. We're talking about like a percentage point or two in his rebounding percentage when he plays alongside Nurk rather than Cantor. Cantor's an excellent rebounder. So we could see like a little bit of that, but I don't think we're going to see him out there, for a significant enough amount of minutes where it's going to really, stretch out to something that we can play, something where we're saying, all right, there's our advantage in playing Robert Covington. So he just kind of slots in as himself, as Robert Covington. He's pretty appropriately priced. He's like a mix-in option. He's 8.8 point real game scoring average for the year, 23.1% rebounding rate that I mentioned. Could, maybe we see that tick up to like 25%, 12% assist share. Not somebody who racks up a ton of the counting stats in other ways. So he is who he is. I think we can get to him, but he's more of a mix-in option. And the more negative that leverage goes, the less I like him.
All right. And here's the big one. Is Yusuf Nurkic getting... So, first of all, quickly, what are you projecting him for in minutes today?
So Alex had him at 21. I had him a little bit higher. I was thinking just, go down the line and give him like an even chop between him and Cantor might be a good idea.
Yeah, I had 24 as well.
Yeah. So that's where I started him. But then, looking at Alex's, I dropped Alex's numbers into my projections earlier before the show, and it did, obviously knock him down a little bit. But he saw, let's see, he played 18.5 minutes, 18 and a half minutes his first game back the other day, but he got 26% usage, put up 8 real life points.
He also had 4 fouls early in the game. In the first quarter, the first half, he had 4 fouls.
Right. So that's obviously going to, hamstring some of his minutes. So it might not have been a management thing as much as it seems like in the box score. And in that, limited run, grabbed 8 boards, dished out 2 assists, picked up 2 stocks, had 4 turnovers as well, which caused a little bit of a negative on his point scoring. But I think, with 21 minutes, 24 minutes, I think he's got some utility at these prices. He's not jumping into a ton of our optimal lineups, but, given that Alex has him at only 21, coming in around, 10%, 15% over on DK in his optimal lineup frequency, that's relevant, especially where you can roster him alongside other centers as just kind of a mid-range, value play on the DraftKings slate. So I think he's a little bit underappreciated for the opportunity. If we see him crack that 24-minute mark, he could be relevant.
Yep, I think so too. And the last thing I'll say on Nurkic is this is a wrist issue. This is not a lower body issue. So is it possible that, Terry Stotts liked what he saw and was like, all right, maybe he could play 28 minutes tonight. Sure. But it's also worth noting that Enes Kanter was actually getting a decent amount of run before Yusuf Nurkic went down with this injury. So there's so many variables here. There's so much like unknown that I think as a tournament option, Yusuf Nurkic could be a play because 27, 28 minutes, and that's like the high end. I'm not saying he gets that, but is it entirely impossible if he gets off to a good start? No. If he does, you're going to want Yusuf Nurkic at $5,500 for sure. Like, this is a great per minute player. Anything else for Portland?
Just, warning sign on the other side of that equation for Enes Kanter, somebody that we've gotten to a decent amount for DFS purposes this year. I mentioned the excellent rebounding rates and, the low post game that he's given us. He's probably overpriced now, given the unpredictable minutes. He's got a decent raw point projection from us. So if you had the money to spend and you just wanted to plug him in as kind of a differentiator, he's not going over owned on either site. He mixes into under 10% of the optimal lineup shares. I would warn off of going to Enes Kanter based on the questionable minutes. We need to get more minutes reliably out of him, but there is a little bit of sneaky utility in there as a guy who will differentiate your lineups and make you, and send you off the beaten path on just a 3-game slate. So there's a lot of guys like that, the 20-ish minute projection type guys who are mixing into 5, 6, 8% of the optimal lineups and make reasonably viable plays where on a bigger slate, they would just be totally irrelevant. So I think Kanter kind of falls into that bucket. I wouldn't really have much use for most of the other guys on this team, though.
So on the Toronto side, when I talk about, you just play the guy that's the cheapest price point. Well, DraftKings has seemingly caught on to that after all this time. Van Vliet, 7,800, Siakam, 7,600, Kyle Lowry, 7,500. So, just line those up, all of them very similarly priced. On FanDuel, Siakam 85, and then you've got Fred Van Vliet at 7,400 and Kyle Lowry at 6,600. So you want to talk about a huge disparity in pricing from FanDuel to DraftKings. It is the big three for Toronto. Huge gap on FanDuel. Talking about a $1,100 gap from Siakam to Van Vliet, and then an $800 gap from Van Vliet to Kyle Lowry, where on DraftKings, you've got a $300 gap between the highest priced guy in Van Vliet and then Kyle Lowry. It makes things a little bit different, but I think that's also why you're seeing a lot of ownership on certain guys and also ownership on all of them because none of them are wildly overpriced against the Blazers team that ranks dead last in defensive rating over the last month by 3 full points per 100 possessions. They're playing at a slow pace, but their defense has been so bad that it really just mitigates the fact that they play slower than most teams.
That is a brutal, brutal defensive mark. And
119.6 per 100. Awful.
Yikes. Yeah. And look, the Raptors, their record is bad, but this is a team with good players. Like we know at least the trio of stars there are good players. They might be second tier overall NBA stars, but these are guys all well over a point per minute. I think we can roster all of them, and the public clearly is. It's just a question of like which ones we're going to in which combinations and how many do you want to roll out at the same time. I think out of the big three, it probably makes sense to not put all three of them in, of course, even though you can do it at these prices. So I would probably, start mixing and matching my way through these guys. I love the discount on Kyle Lowry on FanDuel, 6,600. It just seems like an insane price for Kyle Lowry. He did see Gary Trent just debuted with the team the last time out, and Lowry did see his usage dip. He's a 21% over the course of the entire season, all situations, and it might just be a 1-game blip. It's super small sample size, so we'll have to see how it comes out. But that did dip to 16.7% usage in the last game, so it might be interesting to see whether that has an impact, whether that is, maybe where this price comes from. FanDuel tends not to be that sharp, so I would imagine that it's not based on that and it's just happenstance. But definitely give me some of that low price Kyle Lowry. And it looks like he's going under owned, even at almost 50% ownership based on our leverage score, which is a product of the optimal lineup rate as compared to how frequently he's getting owned by the public. So he's coming up more optimal than he is getting owned. That might change coming into lock. But right now, he's my favorite play on that team. Just looks very, very strong for the money on the FanDuel slate. And he's right there on DK, despite jumping up to 7,500. You only get him as a point guard, where Van Vliet, you get point guard and shooting guard eligibility. The numbers, relatively between the guys on that team on each site don't change that much by a strong degree between those two in particular, where Siakam stands out a little bit more above those two on DK and is getting less owned. So I think he's kind of interesting over there, where he's got a pretty big leverage score. That might be slate leading at this point with a 9.2 leverage score. Public is sleeping on him a little bit. He's coming up almost 50% optimal because we can move him around between power forward and center. And he's probably underpriced at 7,600 given his 1.13 DraftKings point per minute rate this season. So I like getting to all these guys in different shares. I think Siakam, you're getting basically his usual expectation, which is a guy who puts up 24.4% of their rebounds, 25.4% of their assists, and 20.1 real life points per game from the front court. That's one of the better front court players we're going to be able to roster on this slate. So I think we can go to Siakam to a pretty heavy degree, particularly on DK, and roster the hell out of the guards. These are guys that are going to be in a ton of our lineups. This is a major, major inflection point for the slate tonight. And again, despite the none of them are negatively leveraged. Let's put it that way, despite the ridiculously heavy ownership on them.
So I'll ask you in just a moment to rank these Toronto players on DraftKings and FanDuel, because there's just so much going on here. Again, if you missed the very beginning of the show, 34% or more ownership on 5 players for this Toronto team. So all of the starters right now are getting 34+% projected ownership. And on FanDuel, they're all getting 22 or more, 2 of them in the 50s, 3 of them above 45. But before we do that, and you touched on it a little bit, I just want to drill down a little bit more here on Gary Trent Jr. So made his debut, played 31 minutes against the Phoenix Suns. Of course, Gary Trent came from Portland, so him and Norman Powell facing their former teams quicker than you would have thought. The ownership now, though, on Gary Trent, 22.5% on FanDuel, and you can get our ownership projections over at Awesemo.com, along with player projections, boom bust tool, top stack tool, lineup builder, all of these built by the #1 ranked player in the world who's won millions of dollars using these exact tools himself. Awesemo, Alex Baker, you know him. Go to awesemo.com/join. Check out everything we have to offer. Single sport, weekly, monthly, annual, all sport, with baseball coming up, hockey, and NBA, PGA, NASCAR, MMA, League of Legends, esports. If they have contests, we got content for it in front and behind paywall. And we don't just have these ownership and player projection and lineup builder, all these tools just for baseball or basketball. We've got them for like all these sports I'm talking about. We have all of the tools you need to win, play in single entry, 3 max, or MME. And we have the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. So definitely check it out. And be sure to join our premium Slack chat when you do. I think it's a huge asset, a great tool that people don't use enough. Maybe they don't know about it, where you have an awesome community talking sports, DFS, top shots, all different channels for whatever you want, sports betting, and we have our premium office hours where you've got the pros that are part of Awesemo answering your questions in a more intimate setting outside of like YouTube chat, helping you really fine tune and improve upon your game. So go to awesemo.com/join. No matter what your budget, no matter what style of player, whether you're a serious professional hobbyist, just getting into it, we got something for all of you. Terry, that's a long way of saying, what do you think of Gary Trent, who's getting a decent amount of ownership on FanDuel, but a ton of ownership on DraftKings? I don't anticipate him having a monster usage rate, but maybe you can tell me what's different here.
Yeah, I mentioned he was a lower usage rate guy, a little bit more efficient in terms of that than the guy that they sent out, Norm Powell. So I expect he's going to slot in basically along those lines. Might see a little bit less just given how many different players of fairly high usage that he's going to be playing alongside in this new spot. He saw 15.3% usage in the last game, playing 31 minutes. It was a clunky game for him. He went 4 for 11 from the field, but he missed all 5 of his 3-point attempts, which is not him. He's a 39.7% 3-point shooter for the season. So we should see probably around the same amount of attempts, but I would expect that a few more of them fall tonight. And if he's going well, you might see them kick the ball to him a little bit more than that 15.3% usage that he got the other day, scored just 8 points. So I think it's going to be around that, the mid-teens to, maybe the upper teens. If it cracked 20, I would be surprised. But I think he's got some utility for us. The question mark is where his ownership is. He's getting over-owned to his optimal lineup rate on FanDuel, giving us a negative leverage score to work with, where he's a lot more frequently optimal on DK because it costs less at 4,800 compared to the 52 over on FanDuel. And you get him with that special shooting guard, small forward flexibility, where you can move him between 5 different spots in your roster, given all the forward and guard eligibility. So he's just got a ton of utility on that site. And I think for the money, he's one of the better plays at that price range, given that flexibility, that utility, and some reasonable expectation of upside. He doesn't have a huge boom score probability, under 10% from Alex in the boom bust tool, but he does have a reasonably strong, for the price, reasonably strong median projection from us. And there's a little bit of room to go beyond that. And he doesn't have to do a ton for the price. So I think he's just a super useful player on the DraftKings slate, where he's got a lot less utility than that on FanDuel and is getting a little bit too much attention. So it's a very different play across sites. Ultimately, I'll have some of them on FanDuel, but I would probably try and undercut the field's 20-ish percent ownership.
All right, still got to get through 2 games, so we'll make quick work of this last part. Rank your favorite Raptors on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Let's see. On FanDuel, I am going with Kyle Lowry first, then Siakam. And I'm just going to leave it off at those 2. The other guys I'm going to consider kind of mix and match plays. Freddie VanVleet looks excellent on the site, don't get me wrong, but the ownership is kind of right there. So based on the leverage, I'm kicking the other 2 up to the top. He would be 3, and then we would get into like the OGs, the Gary Trents of the world. Let me just sort this guy over here. On the DK slate, I would say Siakam with a bullet based on the just the frequency with which we get him optimal compared to a pretty massive leverage score. And then it actually jumps going by Alex's number and a little bit of leverage actually to a guy we didn't talk about, OG Anunoby, who's 6,100, but has center eligibility on the site, which makes him a little bit interesting in that flexibility range as well. And then it would be Lowry and VanVleet almost dead next to each other.
All right. Let's keep going then. And dude, I have some good props for us coming up later on in the show. You can get a head start on that by checking out our free player prop tool under the NBA dropdown at awesemo.com. It's totally free. Alex put this together, and you can use it in conjunction with No House Advantage, sponsor of the show. Player prop tools are huge when you're betting player props, especially in a contest format. And when you use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, to get $20 in your first match deposit bonus. We got free player prop tools. We got a No House Advantage player prop projections that a lot of people that play there don't even know about. So you're getting an immediate edge right there. And we have the optimal lineups tool, all for No House Advantage. Exploit ways to make money in DFS, just as you would do in any other market, in any other area of life, when you can find ways to make money and you can do it at a higher clip than you would doing something else, maybe playing DraftKings and FanDuel. And obviously we love them because the prize pools are massive. You have a choice or an opportunity really to make life-changing money. You're not getting that life-changing money at No House Advantage, but you're putting yourself in a position to have a bankroll where you can take a whole lot more shots at that life-changing money later down the road when you build upon that bankroll, because you're getting props that are stale earlier in the day that, unlike other books, don't change when action comes in on them. So just 100 different ways you can get an edge here, especially by using our tools and by getting that $20 bonus when you use the promo code Awesemo. Just go to No House Advantage, download that app, check it out today. Tell them we sent you. Actually, just use the promo code Awesemo and they will know. All right, Tara, let's go to Atlanta and Denver. So we got the Atlanta Hawks against the Denver Nuggets, 4.5-point dogs, 224 total. Everyone, for the most part, looking healthy here. You've got DeAndre Hunter questionable, but he's somebody that was out for so long. He's only been back for a couple of days now that we know what it looks like without him. Cam Reddish remains out, and then Lou Williams won't be making his debut quite yet. Trey Young, however, has fallen below $9,000 on DraftKings. Is that enough tonight to say, you know what, I'm going to take the leap and get some Trey Young today on such an abbreviated slate?
Yeah, I think for me, if Trey Young is under $9,000, I want to be a part of it. I think I want to get him into my roster. He's a dynamic scorer. I heard you guys on the morning show, and everything Alex had to say about his rebounding rate is entirely accurate. He is not a very willing rebounder or a very effective rebounder, but he is a guy who can just light it up scoring wise when he decides to. He's down a little bit overall on the year. But just, looking in, he's 1.27 fantasy points per minute across all situations on the season. The rebounding rate that Alex mentioned, and, just to affirm that, 12.1% rebounding share, not huge, but he puts up a 52.3% assist rate. That's more than half the team's assists. So he's making up a little bit for that lack of rebounding. 25.7 real life point scoring average, 31.4% of the team's usage, 59% true shooting mark, 35.9 from behind three. You'd like to see both of those marks improve a little bit, and it would make him the true superstar that some people think he is. He's a tier down from some of those Steph Currys of the world, but he can light it up on any given night at a similar kind of rate. He can be that kind of a shooter when he decides to be, and he is totally willing to try to be that guy. So if you catch him on the right night, and I think when we're under 9K, we can take a lot of shots at catching him on that night. I think he could be super relevant for us. And he's not getting dramatically over-owned. He's getting attention, but it's right in line with like what we're getting for him for the optimal lineup rate. So if we were getting Trey Young at this price and at -10, -15 type leverage marks, I'd be a little bit more concerned. When we're getting Trey Young at appropriate ownership at a low price, I think I want to start rostering him with pretty extreme frequency, especially on a 3-game slate where a lot of it's just going to come down to some raw point scoring for us.
I'm with you, man. And I think sometimes you might look at someone like Trey Young and get a little gun shy there. And honestly, I think to some extent that's justified. But one thing that can kind of quell those nerves is when you look at the numbers, he still has a 32.5% usage rate, right? He's got the same usage rate as Damian Lillard this season. Not playing quite as many minutes, but monster usage rate. And he has a 45% assist rate. The difference is between a lot of guys that are priced up, Trey Young does not rebound well, and he just doesn't get a lot of stocks. He doesn't do much in the way of getting steals to mitigate those nights where he has bad shooting games. But could Trey Young go out and give you 30 and 15? He absolutely could. He's done a ton on the assist front. So it sucks to see, Terry, that he's not giving you these monster games recently. But at the same time, any guy that has 32.5, almost 33% assist rate and a 45%, or I'm sorry, 32.5 usage, 45.5% assist rate, you know that the ceiling is absolutely still intact. And that's all I'll say on Trey Young. What are your thoughts on the rest of the Atlanta Hawks today? Then we'll work our way to that front court.
Yeah, some relevant plays on both sites. I think there's more relevance across the entire team on DraftKings, where like you can pick up some multi-position eligibility by moving Bogdanovic around the board. He comes up a little bit more useful optimal lineup rate wise over on FanDuel, where you're getting him for 4,200 as a small forward, but he picks up the shooting guard and small forward eligibility that I mentioned before on DraftKings. So you've got a lot of utility out of him too for 4,900 over on DK. Since returning to the rotation 11 games ago, boy, was it too obvious that I was reading that out of my article?
I do that all the time when I write it on Thursday. It makes it so easy. Why not put in the research?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I got to nearly 6,000 words for 3 games today, doubling as my show research. So he's been back for 11 games, 19.9% usage, putting up 10.5 real life points in 23 minutes per game. An uninspiring 13.4% rebounding share, but an okay assist percentage that helps him pad the stats a little bit. Gets a little bit of an opportunity for some additional facilitation with Rondo being shipped out of town. So I think he could see a little bit of an uptick in his productivity. And I think he's a reasonable mix and match kind of an option for us on this slate. You can get some utility maybe out of Tony Snell, and he might pick up a few additional minutes if we see DeAndre Hunter not play. So I think he's got some usefulness at the min price on FanDuel, more so at 3,400 on DraftKings. Coming up pretty frequently optimal over there for that price. Just one of the few guys in that price range who has any kind of viability on the slate at all. So you're never expecting big time upside out of Tony Snell. That is like, I just want to plug 15 points or so into my roster tonight because that's all I can afford. So in that terms, he does have a little bit of utility and a little bit of leverage if that's all you're looking for. Not an upside guy. Again, just hammer that home. Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari kind of slot in as like mix and match type plays on the slate. They both are priced basically for who they are. A little bit more useful over on DraftKings in terms of the optimal lineup rate. And then John Collins, projected for under 30 minutes from us, 8,200 at the power forward spot on FanDuel, 7,300 on DK, power forward and center eligible. He is kind of a question mark for me. I think everybody expected they were going to try and move him at the deadline. They probably did try. They didn't succeed. 1.10 fantasy points per minute this year, down from 1.24 last year. Takes a bite out of his rebounding, playing alongside Clint Capela. I think he's overpriced at 8,200, and he's getting a little bit too much attention on this slate. So he's got some utility for sure in terms of raw point scoring. I will have him in some lineups, but I think I want to undercut that 22% ownership mark on FanDuel, get to him probably more around like the 15% that we've got for him in the optimal lineup rate. He's a little safer on DraftKings where he costs less. You get him at multiple positions. I think you can, roster him more around the Fields mark on DK, but he's kind of a question mark for me. And I don't love the salary or, there's just no upside for him on either side.
One of the tough things that Alex and I talked about, and I see chat talking about it right now. By the way, huge giveaway today. If we get to 500 likes in the next 10 minutes, I will give you the biggest thank you you've ever heard on an Awesemo live stream. You look at ownership, and for good reason, some of these guys aren't getting that much because the value just doesn't exist. And, you had the trade deadline. There's still a lot of teams that might not have those players active tonight, but there just aren't a lot of really likable value plays, solid value options. There's a few, but when Gary Trent is your highest owned value option on DraftKings, I think that, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is the second, I think that illustrates all we need to know why some of these higher price guys might not be 50% like they would be on a 3-gamer at other points.
Yeah, it's just difficult to get to some of these guys all together in groups. So that's why, we've got to focus on rotating through and then squeezing as much out of the mid-range as we can with some of these plays, because there just are not a lot of these $3,000 guys. And that's why a guy like Tony Snell, despite, a 15-point and nothing else kind of a expectation, maybe does have some relevance on here. You mentioned KCP. He's one of the prime value plays on the DraftKings slate. He's a guy I never like to roster. I really don't like putting him in my lineup, but I think he's very, very relevant to this slate today just for the fact that he costs what he costs. And he's another guy that's just going to slot in. You're putting in this amount of expected points, and that's probably all you're getting out of him. But it makes some other things work at some of these other positions where just rostering some of these other plays just doesn't.
It's true. Want to move on to the other side of this one for Denver, or do you want to talk about the front court a little bit more? If we're covered, man. We're good to go.
Yeah, I don't know that we mentioned that Capela. I might have skipped over him a little bit.
Yeah, because the one thing I wanted to say, Terry, real quickly on Capela is while the Nuggets are a good team, if you go to tracking on NBA.com stats, right? You look at tracking, go to defensive impact. If you go all the way to the right, it'll say DFG percentage. A lot of people that think that's just the defensive field goal percentage. It's actually defensive field goal percentage on shots within 3 feet of the basket. Well, believe it or not, only the New Orleans Pelicans allow more or a higher field goal percentage within 3 feet of the rim than the Denver Nuggets do this year. So with that in mind, somebody like Clint Capela that does a lot of work around the basket and is not someone that you're going to see jacking up 3-pointers quite frequently could actually be in a more favorable spot than it looks. 70.4% of all of his shots come within 3 feet of the rim. He's shooting 67% on those this season. Could be a pretty favorable spot, but he's going to have to do more in the way of peripherals as well.
Yeah, and look, it's a big-time upside play. He averages 2.2 blocks and 0.7 steals as well, 2.9 stocks, per game, 14.7 real-life points. So he's got the upside for sure. And with that in mind, what you were just talking about, that's really interesting, especially considering how effective of an offensive rebounder he is too. He's going to get some of those shots that bounce off the rim under the boards, and if he's got an easier time putting it back and scoring from down there, I like him even better. I think he had upside before I was considering that really. And I think we're getting him at positive leverage on both sites, which keeps him pretty interesting. 1.39 fantasy points per minute across all situations this year. That fits into an $8,500 center role on FanDuel where we're only getting one center. $7,500 on DK. I think that's a discount over there, and the public's not catching up with it. So I definitely think there's some upside and some utility in the Capela play here. And I really like what you just brought up. That makes him even more interesting.
Yeah, and he's just a monster on the boards. He can block shots. He'll grab you those stocks. He's averaging 3 stocks per game this year, a 15 and 14 double-double, points, rebounds. I can get on board with that for sure. I just love to see him play more minutes on a consistent basis. If you get 35 minutes from Capela at 7,500, you're rostering him in this spot every single night.
Absolutely.
All right, Tyler, let's talk about the Denver Nuggets then. Nikola Jokic 10-4 on DraftKings and on FanDuel. He is weighing in at a very, very high, but very reasonable 11,300. So big difference there. And even if you were to just take him and the next highest priced player on FanDuel, there's a $2,200 difference between him and Lillard, who's the next highest priced guy. On DraftKings, he's 10-4. Lillard's the next highest priced player, but he's only $600 cheaper. So there's a big gap there for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's interesting because he comes in with around the same kind of viability on both sites in terms of our optimal lineup rate, despite that price discrepancy. It's just so focused at the singular center spot on FanDuel. So you're getting him around 20-ish% optimal on both sites, around similar ownership as well. So I don't think there's any sweat in terms of rostering him when you can afford him. It makes total sense to roster Nikola Jokic and just not worry about where the public is on a probably the best overall raw point scoring, best overall total upside play of the day. That said, at the salary, he does restrict some of the other things that you can do through your lineups. We talked about the lack of value on this slate. So he doesn't have like slate leading optimal lineup rates when we compare him to some of the other guys at some of these other positions. So the way that the lineups are actually coming together with different combinations of some of those super useful guys, those supremely optimal guys, he slips out of a lot of the optimal lineups in our simulations, which is really interesting. And it makes him, kind of an important inflection point. If he goes off for one of those 80-point Nikola Jokic nights, it's lights out if you don't have him in your roster, pretty much regardless of what else is going on a 3-game slate. But if he's just putting up around the median projection, the 50-point night that we expect from him on FanDuel, the 52-point night we expect from him on DK, now you're talking about a bit of a question mark. The rest of your lineup is going to have a lot of work to do, and there's going to be a lack of stars in it as compared to a lot of other people's lineups where they went with a more balanced approach, maybe put Capela at center and had $3,000 more to spread across different positions. That is a big, big differentiator on a slate like this. So it's something to keep in mind. Huge inflection point for the slate. I would probably still be rostering them beyond the public's ownership shares on both sites. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment that way. I think I can get to some viable enough constructions, but it's definitely going to be a huge swing point for the slate. What would you be doing with them across like 150 lineups? Would you be above or below where the public is?
So I haven't made lineups yet. I'm going to once the show is over. That'll tell a story because it's going to really depend on what I'm getting in the rest of those lineups. Like, have you crunched lineups?
I had one running earlier, but I didn't have enough time to really dig into it. Let me see if I left it open.
I'm curious how ugly the rest of the lineup looks, because if you can make it look even decent, surely I want to get over the field on Nikola Jokic, specifically on DraftKings at $10,400. I mean, you just have to consider this. Yes, Damian Lillard does have that ceiling, but the likelihood of him hitting that ceiling is lower than we've seen from Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic on a bad night is giving you 60. That could be so huge on this slate if Jokic goes for a 75-80 spot tonight in a good matchup against Atlanta. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot to make a call on because I'm assuming a lot of those lineups are going to have Gary Trent Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in them.
Yeah, for sure. And those are that we talked about those guys a little bit as the only real viable value guys on the slate. So interestingly, a good way to check this is by just running, lock the guy that you're thinking about and run the optimal, and then unlock him and run the optimal and put them side by side in Fantasy Cruncher. So I just did that since I didn't have a full slate of Christopher, who just DM'd me. I will send you the link to that DFS 101 group after the show. So putting those two side by side, I just ran them since I didn't have the full crunch out. It's really interesting. The optimal, the pure optimal without Jokic, with Alex's projections, 300.76 on FanDuel. The optimal with Jokic locked in, 299.43. So it's right there. But it's interesting. It's going to be interesting once we start stretching it out to more constructions, because there's probably a lack of viability in terms of what else we're putting alongside Jokic. So I expect that would get further afield faster in terms of lineups with Jokic locked. If I ran like 50 of them as compared to without him locked and I ran 50 of them, I think we'd be further down the line in our total points quicker and more divergently, if I'm making any sense at all, than if we ran it without him locked. So the pure optimals are coming off the top pretty close, but I think by comparison, we would get this kind of a separation as we go if we ran it with the Jokic play.
All right, sounds good. Oh, man. All the 76ers hate coming into the chat right now. Don't do me like that. I agree. They're probably not winning it, but you can't say they don't suck. What do you mean they suck?
They don't suck.
They won 10 of their last 11 before last night. More than half of them without Joel Embiid, who was arguably the top MVP vote getter before he went down. Put some respect on that name, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking to a guy who's wearing a 2013 playoffs we're playing for now New York Knicks shirt, because that's the last time his team had any relevance. So, yeah, the Sixers certainly do not suck, much as I hate to say that about any Philadelphia team.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if Irving's even going to show up for the playoffs? I don't know. You don't, I don't know. No, in all seriousness, if all three of those guys are active, Harden, Durant's healthy, and Irving's out there, it's going to be a very difficult team to beat. But the Sixers are a good team. I think they take it to 7. Keep that in mind.
Sure.
I think, what's that?
It'll be fun to watch if we get it, for sure.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, if Embiid's healthy, for sure. What else are we doing with Denver, Terry? We'll close this game out. We'll wrap it up with Orlando Lakers and toss it over to the Live Before Lock crew.
Yeah, so we've got the question mark about Aaron Gordon and how he fits into this whole thing. We've got MPJ on the board to discuss. I think they're the two most relevant players. Gordon in particular seems to be projecting a little bit below expectation in terms of actually caught up a little bit on FanDuel. So his projected ownership was trending a little bit below. He's still got a slightly positive leverage score, but you guys have caught up out there. So good job on the Gordon play. 6,300, I think, is a pretty viable position for him, the power forward on FanDuel. A little bit less relevant on DK, but he does pick up the multi-forward eligibility. But 7,000 is a little bit more to pay for him. He's going to be interesting to watch playing alongside Jokic. 29.7 assist share playing in Orlando. Probably not going to be asked to play that facilitation role quite as much, playing alongside a guy with an absurd assist rate from the middle in Nikola Jokic. I had it here a minute ago, 40.8% assist percentage for Jokic. So there might not just be those assists for Gordon to pad some of his stats with. So it'll be interesting to see there, but he might pick up a few additional rebounds, and he's a good player in a good situation. So I think we can expect a little bit of upside from him, which we're seeing here, but he is now going to be owned at a pretty wide clip. So it takes a little bit of the gleam off of him from what I was seeing earlier in the day. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is somebody he's also owned probably right around where he should be by the field. Fairly interesting for the positional flexibility on DK, but again, another guy who's a little bit more expensive over there. So probably a little more useful on FanDuel. Has kind of come on in recent weeks too. He was averaging for the season 1.02 fantasy points per minute over their last 10 games, second on the team with a 21.4 real point scoring average, 33 minutes per game, making 52.7% of his threes over that stretch. Pretty solid. Only 21% of the team's usage. Picks up 27.9% of the rebounds. So a decent little additional consideration there for Michael Porter Jr. Again, another guy going to be rostered appropriately. Like I said, 30% on FanDuel, around 20% on DK. But I think we can roster him at least around the field. And if you wanted to tick up above that, probably one of the more viable guys to do it on from the mid-range. And we do need to squeeze something out of the mid-range on this slate. So I like MPJ on this slate as well.
All right. Terry, 2 down, 1 to go. The Orlando Magic. I mean, talk about an absolute shit show. Not in that I think they did anything wrong, but from a DFS standpoint, there's just so much going on here. No more Nikola Vucevic, no more Evan Fournier, no more Aaron Gordon, who you just mentioned for the Denver Nuggets. Gary Clark, too. They get Jeff Teague. They're releasing him, and they got Wendell Carter Jr. Just so many moves here. And it's funny because if you go to DraftKings and just click on Orlando, there's so much red on these names. It's just all red right next to him. Q, Q, O, O, Q, Q, O, all throughout this entire player pool. So the biggest spot and where I actually want to start here, Orlando Magic 7-point dogs against the Lakers, ugly 208 total, is Terrence Ross. So if he plays, and he's been out for a while, hasn't played since the 14th. If he does end up playing, his price point is going to scare a ton of people off. And my assumption is this matchup against a still good Lakers defense is going to scare people off too. But do you know what his usage is without those guys on the floor? It's like 35%. 37%, I think. And he's a 1.35 DraftKings point per minute player without Fournier, without Vooch, without Fultz, and without Aaron Gordon. And he's played like 400 minutes in that situation just this season. So is it a huge sample? No. Is Terrence Ross, who tweeted, I'm the captain now gif when everyone got traded on Twitter, just phenomenal. Is he going to get up potentially 30 shots going forward in some of these games? You better believe you're going to see massive volume from Terrence Ross if he is healthy. I'm just throwing that one out there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're talking about a guy who takes 14-ish field goal attempts per game in normal circumstances for the year, in under 30 minutes per game. So that was 23.2% of the team's usage in, again, normal situations with everybody healthy. When those guys are out, it skyrockets, and those guys are gone. So he is going to be a willing shooter. He's a capable shooter. He can certainly have those big-time heat check nights. Overall for the season, he is 36% from beyond three. So you'd like to see him, be in more of that 40-ish% range, but 36% we're not going to really quibble with, particularly when he has those nights where he's just completely going off. 53.6% true shooting percentage. He's a heat check guy for sure. We can get him into some of our rosters, assuming that he plays. He's going to be under-owned based on what we're seeing now on both sites. He's affordable at 6,900 for sure on FanDuel from the shooting guard spot. Hi, Joker. My dog's in the room with us. I was trying to prevent him from barking in the other room, and now he's whining to get out of here.
Oh, that's all right. Man's best friend right there.
That's right. That's right. And one of the best dogs I've ever met. So we've got, so going back to Ross, we're getting him under-owned on both sites. I think, like you said, the salary at 7,300 on DK is going to scare a lot of people off. Coming in with very, very small ownership share there. It prevents him from coming up in a ton of the optimal lineups in our simulations. And he doesn't have a tremendous boom score probability. What he does give you is that multi-position guard and forward flexibility, and just that crazy upside of we could get that 30 shot where he makes a ton of them kind of night out of Terrence Ross. So you're looking to capture that just wild range of outcomes night from him, that big outlier game. You can throw him in a few of your lineups. If you want to exceed the public's 1.2% ownership share that I have in the last update, it won't be difficult. And I think there's some potential viability in doing it. So yeah, I like getting to Ross a little bit more than the public for sure.
All right. So, I mentioned earlier in the show that we have that player prop tool, not just for No House Advantage, but also just for player props in general. And the coolest thing about this is Alex over at Oddsshopper, which is, an Awesemo product. It's free. Oddsshopper.awesemo.com, where you can search players' odds by name. You can create watch lists for all of the bets. You can set up a bet tracker and track all of your bets. But more importantly, it's called Oddsshopper because you can shop odds from all different books. And you want to know how to win? I read a lot of books on this and tried to do my best at studying this. And all the smartest people will tell you a lot of things. But one of them is you have to take time to shop and find the best odds, because with such little of edge there is in betting sides and even props in some of these bigger sports, find the best ones. Well, I'm looking at oddsshopper.awesemo.com, and we have a very cool, it's right on the same page as all the props. We have a very cool tool. It's the expected ROI column and the expected win percentage column. Well, Dwayne Bacon has a points prop of 13.5 across like 4 different books. So I go over and I look to see what Alex has him at, because I see, oh my God, 88% win rate, 68.5% expected expected win percentage. And he's got Dwayne Bacon at 9.02 projected points with the highest expected win percentage and the highest expected ROI of anybody on the day on the prop tool and over on Oddsshopper. So if you can get in on that, the math, the numbers, and the smartest guy I know say that this is a very, very solid bet. So check that out. Another one too, Gordon Hayward. That's the wrong one. OG Anunoby, about 2 points projected higher than his actual point prop today. We got him at 16.5. He's at 14.5, 65% expected win percentage on that. I like that as well for that Toronto-Portland game. All right, Terry, let me go back to you here. We got about 5 minutes. Anything else you like for Orlando? Not a team that's getting a ton of ownership, which given their scenario is kind of surprising.
Like is a strong word, but DFS wise, have to roster DFS wise, totally viable for tournament play, probably for cash play. Yeah, there are two guys on this team. MCW leaps to mind from the top of the board on this team, going by Alex's optimal lineup rate. There's a massive leverage score on him on both sites as well. Well over 15%, well over 10%, a little over 15%, and on FanDuel, and over 10% leverage on, or 10 points of leverage on DK. I think he is a phenomenal roster on both sites. 6,300 on DraftKings. It's more than you would expect to pay for him and still retain any kind of utility or value over there. And it does cap his overall upside. But I think on a 3-game slate where we're just kind of looking to plug in some raw points, he makes some sense there, and you're getting him well under onto his optimal lineup rate. So I think he makes sense there. 5,300 as a point guard on FanDuel. Totally viable. Still has a lot of upside on his boom score probability. Can definitely produce for that price, and does not have many strong comparison points at the position unless we're paying up. So I like getting to him there. I think you can get some value out of Chuma Okeke on FanDuel in particular, 5,300 at the weak power forward spot. He's coming up a little bit viable. I don't love it. 0.69 fantasy point per minute guy over the course of the season. We did see him lead the team in scoring in the most recent game, given a lack of other options. So he was, 37 minutes in that game. So 18% of the usage, led the team with 22 points, added 6 rebounds and 4 assists, 2 steals as well. Kind of a standout performance. I think he's going to have less to do tonight. 10 games before the trade deadline and the shakeup, 23.2 minute average, 7.2 minutes, or 7.2 real life points per game. So certainly not the standout that he was in what we saw the other day. Otto Porter, 5,000, only a 22.6 minute projection from Alex, but a 9.95 point per minute producer across all situations with Chicago this season. I think he's got some relevance. 5,500 on DK, both forward positions eligible. A little bit of relevance there as well. Coming up in a fair share of the optimals and under-owned on both sites. More of a mix-in type of option for me than a go-to. And then I think Wendell Carter Jr. has some viability, assuming he goes. He is a guy that they traded for, one of the featured pieces in what they got back. So I think they're going to go to him and going to look to him. Alex has him at a 25-minute projection. I had him a little bit higher than that. And I expect that he's got some upside and some viability. 1.05 fantasy point per minute producer for us across the season with Chicago. I think he can exceed that, and I think he has a potential path for both minutes and usage, and some rebounds in the middle for this Orlando team that's going to be a little bit weak in the front court, and is again going to feature him because they traded for him.
All right. Well, we got 2 minutes to go here, Terry. So I'm going to turn it over to you to hit on the Lakers. And one more thing. Almost at 500 likes. Trip over the keyboard running to that like button. Break it. Destroy it, so it never works again. And if you hate the show, hit that thumbs down twice. You got to do it twice, though. It's important that if you hate it, you hit that thumbs down twice. Terry, lead us out with the Lakers discussion here, and then we'll talk to EMac and Eric with the Live Before Lock.
Cool. Yeah, we got some viability on the Lakers side of things, despite a pretty despicable rotation in terms of NBA players without the 2 super duper stars on this team. We've talked about KCP a few times, so I'll start with him. 3,900 at the shooting guard position makes him super relevant to the DraftKings slate. He's coming up in 27% of simulations in the optimal lineup. He's going to be owned a little bit more than that, but as one of the few guys with any kind of actual utility or viability from the 3,000s price tier, I think he's somebody that you just have to consider rostering just as a building block to help you get to some of these other pieces. Way less relevant on the FanDuel slate. He costs 4,800 as a small forward over there. We've got many better options. He's getting a little bit over-owned. You can mix him into some shares of your lineups, but just not nearly as relevant. A guy who is very relevant on FanDuel, less so on DraftKings, is Markieff Morris. 4,400, from what I mentioned a few times, is kind of a flat power forward spot. Get to him a decent amount in those shares. He's a little bit under-owned. Not a great performer, 0.75 fantasy points per minute and 25-minute projection, but I think there's enough that we can squeeze from the mid-range from him. THT has increased his viability in our recent updates, just going under-owned for the amount that we're getting him in the optimal lineup now for 5,200 from the shooting guard spot, 5,700 with that multiple position guard and forward eligibility on DK, makes him pretty relevant. 25-ish% optimal, owned significantly less than that. Kyle Kuzma, 7,200 is uncomfortable to pay for Kyle Kuzma based on just the name on the back of the jersey, but he's been relevant. And I think he's going to be as well. Without LeBron and Anthony Davis, 21.7% of the team's usage on the season. Over the 4 games since LeBron went out, that ticked up to 22.8%. averaging 14.5 real life points, 34.7 minutes per game, 28.2% rebounding rate, 29.9% assist share, which is pretty healthy for Kyle Kuzma over that 4-game sample. Keeps him afloat despite the ridiculous price that I would never want to pay for Kyle Kuzma. I think we got to do it tonight. I think he mixes in as just kind of a own him around the field type of option. I don't know that I would want to exceed the 40% mark that the field is going to be at on the FanDuel slate for him. I think that's all the guys. You can mix and match in Alex Caruso a little bit on both sites if you want to.
All right. Terry, it's been fun, man. We'll do this again next Sunday.
Good one.
And you got the new background going. I like it much better than the closet door.
Well, like I said, we lose a little bit of like that mystery of like who's going to come out as Jason Voorhees going to pop out of the closet and just murder me in the middle of a show one day. But I guess this is a little bit more professional looking with my years old dirty piles of DVDs behind.
Well, if Jason Voorhees is going to come out and murder you, he'll just come from the left now instead of from the back. It's a win-win situation, you know?
That's true. A closet door never really gotten in his way if he wants to get to me. So yeah.
Damn right. Anyway, we love you guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us every day. Hopefully someone or some of you take down something big. And starting Monday, we're going to be introducing a new segment, the Awesemo Hall of Fame segment. We used to do it. We're bringing it back. So if you do win something, right? And well, if you have the Awesemo avatar and you win something, I think it's a field of 5,000, you come in top 3, tweet at us and you will win a free month of Awesemo, but you got to have the Awesemo avatar. But more than anything, tweet at us. And if you take something down, it doesn't have to be huge. If it's big to you, tweet at me, tweet at Terry, follow us first, or tweet at the Awesemo handle. And with your win, we're going to start doing Awesemo Hall of Fame segments, showcasing all of your guys' big wins. You deserve those shout outs. You watch it every day. You hang with us. And that's our way of giving back, showing you that, yeah, we love this community and we love when you win. And we want to show other people that we got a bunch of winners around here for sure. So we'll see you soon. Stick around. EMac, Eric coming up next, taking you up till 7. Later, boys.
Yeah.
Over under on EMac laughs, 13.5 tonight.
Smash that over.
There's one.
I got a snort in there too.
I know. And I was just like, hope nobody heard that one. But oh well, there we are.
Hot mic.
All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on NBA Live Before Lock, joined by the one and only Eric Lindquist. Thank you to Loughran and Terry McBride for getting everything warmed up. We have a 3-game slate. Last night was absolutely wild, Eric. There was news, then there was more news, then there was more news. It was pretty crazy. There were winners. I love the Kush. Did pretty well over there on Super Draft. We got to see him, and Tom JK was up there, and of course Rinpack, your guy. Did you play yesterday, or were you just still doing the golf thing?
Well, no. So Friday morning, I got to go play a little golf tournament. First alternate for SCGA Mid-Am, which sucks because I played much better than I ended up scoring. But got that in Friday morning, then drove over to La Quinta, got to go see my parents for the first time this year. So that was nice. We're vaccinated and life is lovely there. But I was going to log on. So I logged on a little bit late, like 3:30, 4 o'clock out here on the West Coast. I'm like, oh, I'll see what this slate looks like. Saw Sam Merrill. Saw Thanos Antetokounmpo. So I was like, what happened? Because I turn off my notifications when I don't play, just so I'm not like on my phone the whole time. Good Lord, you guys are brave people. That must have been a fun one yesterday.
It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. We had some good times. We had some crazy times. DK Cash swept them 359. I'll be dropping those in again. I'm due to lose. So hashtag team front
Damn,
free
it
money.
feels good to be a Kings.
Yeah. Hashtag free money is going to be in effect tonight. What else do we have? Well, let me drop in the link. We have one more spot here left in the Fred Van Elite fan club. You guys want to jump in there? You can get, if you win with an Awesemo avatar, you will get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. I'm going to drop the link on how to get the Awesemo avatar. If you are repping that in any other contest that is 5,000 people or more, and you finish first, second, or third, shoot us a screenshot of you.
Holy crap. Kyle Lowry got ruled out.
Wow. Well, let me finish my read and then
okay, continue on.
We're off and running here. You can win 33 days of Awesemo premium content. That's a $90 value. But jump on in that Fred Van Elite fan club. I will be playing Fred Van Elite tonight. Woo! Here we go. So is this like an emotional thing? How are they ruling him out? They cleared the spots to clearly trade him, and then they didn't.
Nope, it's a foot. Something with a foot. Just have a seat, Kyle. Oh, that mucks it up a little. Well, okay, so it mucks it up a little bit just because there were basically only 5 guys in my player pool from Toronto. It was all the guys who played 30 plus minutes. You're seeing Baines and Boucher basically out of that rotation now, where they're playing like 14, 16 minutes here. Gosh, what are some of these other ancillary pieces? I mean, part of it is that they were going under-owned, and now I find that very difficult to believe that that's going to be the case.
And they traded some backup guards, so
yes. And they waived. So yeah, Terrence Davis is gone.
I'm trying to remember who he ended up with. I can't remember, but yeah, he was moved, and I've already lost track of my head swimming. There's one other person moved, so. This is going to be weird.
Malachi Flynn season. Welcome to the day.
I can't do that. Can't do that.
Played 14 minutes last game, and I mean, who else is going to be playing minutes? I mean, you got to think he's going to get north of 20 probably here, unless, I mean, part of it is these guys can play 38, 40 minutes. Like Fred VanVleet can, Gary Trent can. I kind of expect them to in this spot now. So, oh boy, what a entrance to this show today.
Well, we were looking for the value. It came. I even mentioned today in my article that it doesn't matter. It's always going to happen. This is the triple witching hour. 1, it's right after the trade deadline. 2, it's a Sunday and wackiness happens. And 3, we're in the middle of a compressed schedule on the back half. So teams are starting to tank in earnest. I just didn't think it was going to be the Toronto Raptors that provided this news for us. So let's see. That is the first main thing that we have. So let's kind of go. So let's talk about the first decision point here. Maybe we'll get lucky and get some lineups here. We're going to talk a little No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of the show tonight. You guys need to know that we have free projections for their site. They are fantasy sports prop betting with a twist. They've turned it into a fantasy sports bonanza. So basically what we do here is you can, when you play, you choose tonight, there are 165 different questions. You choose 10 of them and you rank them with a confidence point from 10 to 1. If you are correct on the over or the under of said player prop, you win or lose. The points create your score. There's generally overlay in their contests, and a lot of people don't really understand how to play it. Not only do we have the projections for you, we've built out the first 500 optimal lineups for you. All you got to do is scroll down to about lineup number, I don't know, 42, 420, something like that. Choose that one, put it in there.
How'd you land on 420?
I don't know. It's just it's a thing, I guess. It's a
EMac
thing.
2024.
Oh yes, we'll see. Free sticky buds for all. It's the way to go. It's the way of the future. And pizza, a pizza in every stove. That's going to be my platform here. So here's the decision point we have for the night. Nikola Jokic. Now, you like to play over there on the blue side, the FanDuel site. So over there, you can only play one center. He is projected for 10 more raw fantasy points than anybody else on the slate right now. He is very expensive. He's 56 on Yahoo. He's over 11 or 11.2 on FanDuel, and I think he's 10.4 or 10.6 on DK, 10.4 on DK. So on FanDuel, we can only play one center. What is your game theory strategy for this tonight? Because you have Jokic, who's not only the only center we can play, he's incredibly expensive and he projects so much better than everybody else. Do you want to go away from him and look towards a Clint Capela, who's kind of we really don't see more than 30, 34 or so minutes from him because they've got Gallinari, they've got John Collins, they've got a variety of people there. We're looking at Montrezl Harrell, who may or may not even be starting. He'll get his minutes, but are those guys going to overtake him? So we're kind of rooting on foul trouble, I guess, for Jokic, or a subpar game. By the way, his last 3 against Clint Capela, when Capela's been with Houston, he has scored 53, 61, and like 46 fantasy points. So that it's not, while Capela's a good defensive center, this is Jokic. He's, almost averaging a triple double. He's putting up 56 fantasy points per game. He's basically the last man standing for the MVP right now. What do you do with this? Because that totally changes your whole lineup. By going with him or going without him.
So there's a couple of things to talk about here. You have Nikola Jokic. Obviously, adding Aaron Gordon is going to increase. Like that's going to dig into Jokic's usage. Like that's just going to be a fact. I find it difficult to believe that Aaron Gordon isn't going to try to find a way to get his in certain spots for this Denver team. However, you're looking at a slate right now where the highest priced player on FanDuel is 8,500 at power forward. At small forward, it's 7,500. At shooting guard, it's 7,900. And at point guard, it's 9,100. You're basically not having to pay up to the 10K range at any other position whatsoever. So for me, I'm kind of taking an overweight approach to Jokic because I feel like he's just an exponentially better play. Obviously, looking at Alex's numbers, he's sitting right around 50. Next guy on the entire board sitting at Capela around 37. So you're looking at 12, 13 points right off the bat, just from a raw projection, raw point standpoint. I think Aaron Gordon also, at the same time that he'll cut into the usage, he still creates better opportunities, I would say. So I would expect maybe the assist rate to stay about the same from where it was before here for Jokic. Aaron Gordon is going to have the ball in his hands more. That's just kind of why I think we're seeing that projection come down on him to where it's at now. 11-3 is a gigantic number. Like it's a huge, huge number. But sitting at that position with nobody else to really go crazy and spend for. And now I think there might be 1 or 2 pieces to take some flyers on, looking at the Toronto team as I'm kind of like running through my stuff here now. I think it's not going to be an issue getting up to as much Jokic as you could possibly want. I think salary becomes a little bit less relevant on this slate.
Right. And that's one where I felt it was worth kind of talking through, because that's going to, determine a lot of our outcomes here with what we're doing. I'm just going through and fixing my, I made most of my lineups, but that was kind of silly because now I've got Kyle Lowry everywhere. So do I just start over, or do I just adjust? Let's adjust on the fly. All right. So to the first game here. So we've got kind of a fun little remember me situation going on with Norman Powell playing his second game. Now he's going against his former squad. You've got Gary Trent Jr. on the other side doing the same thing here. As we start to look at Toronto a little bit more, clearly we know this bodes well for OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Fred VanVleet. Is Gary Trent Jr. kind of the next guy up here? How do you feel about Boucher going against giant monsters in the paint in Yusuf Nurkic for probably 24 or so minutes, and Enes Kanter? What do you want to do here with Toronto now that we suddenly are replacing about 40 fantasy points in about 37 minutes?
I didn't completely hate Gary Trent coming into this slate as it is. Like, I didn't think he was a terrible play. 31 minutes. You saw, obviously, the effect of getting into this rotation and kind of being the new guy was a little apprehensive. 16% usage, nothing to like scoff at, but not what you're looking for necessarily at 5,200, but playing 31 minutes. I'm happy to get to a little bit there. I would imagine those numbers, I mean, it has to go up. He's going to project out for more than the 30 that I had him in for. It's going to be around 34, 36. Malachi Flynn is going to pick up some extra run. You would assume they just don't have other bodies to kind of go to there. Stanley Johnson's going to get into the rotation. I would expect him to play a couple of minutes here and there. They can extend, you can extend VanVleet. You can extend Pascal. They become exponentially better plays, but yeah, you're going to see some of these other pieces. I'm curious what Alex is going to get for Malachi Flynn's numbers. That's really the one guy that I think can pop in this spot. We'll see what that starting lineup is too. That could be kind of an out there deal. I could assume they could switch Siakam to the 4 and then plug in Baines and start him at the 5. I think that that's probably what they end up doing. But Malachi coming in the second unit, I like possibly going his direction.
All right. Now that we are still waiting on the next piece of news to drop, I will continue saying the No House Advantage sponsor of the show. We do have all of their projections. We have the optimal lineups there for them. So they have NBA, soon to be MLB contests. NFL is coming right around the corner, and PGA. They're exclusively peer-to-peer on their sports platform. And what it makes the difference here is you're not going against the house with these player props. You're going against other gamers. They don't adjust the player props based upon money coming in or changes in news. They are what they are once they've been posted. You've got to choose someone who is playing for it to work. If you see Kyle Lowry under 22 fantasy point or under 22 points, don't play him because he's not playing. That will count as a 0 because you got it wrong because he didn't set foot on the court. Just know that little twist there. If you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo, they will match you up to your first $20 with your deposit, give you a little run there for free, essentially. You can download their app in any of the app stores, or you can go over there to nohouseadvantage.com and play. Again, every day we'll have those free projections for you, as well as the top 500 optimal lineups. All right, looking to Portland. Portland, a little bit interesting. Damian Lillard was out for the last game. He is back. Nasir Little is out still. Zach Collins could be back, but as soon as the weekend. We've got Norm Powell starting. We got Derek Jones off the bench. We're starting to see a crowded rotation here with Nurkic back. That kind of has a ripple effect across Robert Covington, Enes Kanter, and Carmelo Anthony somewhat, because those are generally more of their front court players. How do you feel about this? Are you going to Nurkic tonight? Would you play Nurkic and Kanter in the same lineup? I effectively think they're probably going to split the minutes with then either Covington or Carmelo matching for the time when Siakam is kind of the center and one of the default Portland centers isn't out there. It's kind of hard to get to any of these guys with everybody coming back because the prices haven't adjusted for everybody being there. And Norm Powell.
It's a cluster. And not only that, we saw that Nurkic ended up getting a 20 minutes limit slapped on him again here for this game. So that
did they call that out?
They took him and basically said 20 minutes. So he's off the board for me completely. I have 0%. If he were to somehow beat me, he beats me. What I'm looking at over at popcornmachine.net, just looking at Kanter, still got to 30 minutes. If you're going to take a dart on somebody, I don't mind going that direction. Again, Nurk is going to play his 18 to 20. And Kanter is going to play the other side of that. You're also looking on the opposite end where you're going to get, I'm assuming it's going to be Baines now that slips in. We'll see what that starting lineup ends up being, but Kanter in the second unit is probably going to be getting Boucher for 14 minutes. Boucher is going to play for around 14, 16 minutes, maybe a little bit more now. They're going to need some offense from the second unit. So this might bode well for Boucher as I'm going through this, just like thinking out loud. I kind of like maybe taking some more shots on him as a result of that. But going back to the Portland side, it's kind of just CJ McCollum that I'm getting to over on DraftKings and a little bit like a smattering of Kanter, but 6,700 is just so expensive to play for a center who's basically capped out at 30 minutes at this spot. You have Jokic. You've got a couple of these Orlando guys that we'll talk about here between Wendell Carter, some other pieces that you might be able to have some interest in, but it's kind of bleak over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, there's kind of viability to a lot of them, except for Nurkic now. CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, 9,100 is just too cheap. Covington and Carmelo, you can take shots on in large field GPPs. This is a 3-game slate. There's going to be somebody who spikes an upside, a minutes upside and a usage upside. I think Carmelo is a prime candidate for something like that. 5,400. We saw him get extended run into, 27 minutes still with Derek Jones still starting, with Robert Covington starting, and then you're inserting Norman Powell, who's playing massive minutes up there to 36. I like getting to him on FanDuel as well.
All right. I'm just looking across here. Nothing too crazy. Let's look at, we kind of hit on Jokic a little bit. The rest of the Denver team's kind of interesting. So, here's the question. This is a good pivot point. KCP or Bogdanovic on FanDuel?
on FanDuel. Okay. Because that's like the bane of my existence right now on DraftKings is figuring out what
3,900 for KCP, or how many minutes do we get for Bogdanovic? Is it going? He started but played less minutes than he had been coming off the bench. I didn't really dive into the rotation because that's where I think about his limit is as he kind of works his way back to health. Or maybe it's not a limit, but I figure that's about where he's going to land in that 28 to 26 to 29 minutes range. KCP will be on the court.
Yeah. Bogdanovic started last time out, played 21 minutes. Yeah. I like it's not great that he's starting necessarily because then you're sharing Collins and Young out there. You're not getting Gallo's the guy who kind of comes in and has the prime usage spike just in the second unit run. But I really don't have a strong lean on which one. On DraftKings, that's what I've kind of been trying to figure out what to do. I'm really curious what Alex is going to have for these Toronto minutes. I'm hoping that can get me away from having to really go overweight on one of those two on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I mean, what are kind of looking Bogdanovic, I don't want to play him still at 4,200. I would rather, just because it's at small shooting guard or small forward. Yeah, they're both small forward. God, 4,800 is too much to pay for him. I would actually go Bogdanovic between those two on FanDuel. You're looking at a $600 difference. Bogdanovic, they did kind of blow that game out towards the end last time out. We did see him play minutes up to 29. So I would take the shot on a guy who actually has some upside rather than a 4,800 KCP who has nobody worth any value creating shots for him right now.
All right, I'm just looking here to see why is this not coming up? Oh, there we go. Okay, so Bogdanovic played his first rotation as he started. He had 2 personal fouls. He picked one up. The second time he came in for number 3, he played about 3 minutes in that stretch. Then he started the second quarter, managed to stay foul free in 8.5 minutes. And then he wrapped up a stint in the middle of the fourth quarter for 4.5 minutes.
One assist.
With one assist.
That he did nothing in. Yeah, I think it's going to be Bogdanovic for me for sure between those two.
Okay. Here we go. Super chat from TJ Zwarich says, how many minutes do you project JaMychal Green to play, assuming Gordon is in?
Let's see. I have 11 minutes and Alex has 11 minutes. There you go. Yeah. So 10 to 11 minutes. How about that?
Not a lot. How do you feel about Okiki's minutes today? A lot of that is going to depend on what happens with the starting lineup for Orlando. Yeah. They traded out 4 of their starters, and their sort of 5th starter was Michael Carter-Williams and Jason Randall had been the only ones that started in the previous 5 games, and they obviously 3-2 in their point guard starts. But so we don't know what's going to happen there. I'm expecting. Let's just go to that. Let's just go to Orlando right now.
Yeah,
I'm expecting. Michael. God, there's all these names are running the same.
Michael Carter-Williams.
Yeah, Wendell Carter Jr. I suspect he will be starting tonight and/or playing. Otto Porter is the guy I'm not sure what to do with. So Wendell Carter Jr., I figure we can probably hope for about 30 minutes from him tonight. I don't know what Otto Porter is going to do. A longtime Washington Wizards fan here, so I by default, because it's the only team by me, and the Seattle Supersonics are never coming back. So we have an issue there with what is he going to do? He's been hurt for the better part of the 2 years with Chicago and his final year with Washington. He feels like if he plays more than 20 minutes, something breaks on him. I like him because we need the salary savings, but I don't know what to do with him. I think we can trust Michael Carter-Williams, who's really solidly priced in the low 5,000s on FanDuel. He's expensive on DK, but at least he'll play probably 30 or 35 minutes. And then from there, I think it's a grab bag because we have no idea what to do because they've dealt the vast majority of their rotation or recent rotation. Mm-hmm. How are you reading that one?
So Wendell Carter, he basically got benched. I mean, he hasn't been out for injury. He got traded. He basically got shoved to the second unit for the Bulls and got buried. They basically were looking at moving him, and they did. So I think that this could be one of those situations where if you're there early, you could be looking at a massive amount of minutes out of the middle of nowhere here. I think the minutes range for a guy like Wendell Carter on this slate is very, very wide. Right now we've got him at 26.5, and I could see him easily get into the 30s. I could also see him easily play around 20. So I don't really know necessarily what to do with that information. On DraftKings, the opportunity cost is much less because you're able to play two centers. You don't have Jokic up top where that's like a make or break situation over like it is over on FanDuel. FanDuel is also a little bit cheaper though. So if you were to have like a floor game out of Jokic, yeah, he would be a guy that you could see spike a crazy minutes upside. You got to see what you have with him. Maybe it's just kind of a new situation, new toy. Some of these other Orlando guys did play well. Chuma Okeke's a rookie. You've got pieces that are starting to come into their own there too. So I don't really know what that means for everything. I would feel very, very secure with him should he end up being in the starting lineup. So also on this slate, it locks at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock out here. You've got 2 hours, 3 hours till that game, but 2 hours till the next game. We're going to hopefully get these lineups sooner rather than later and be able to kind of adjust on the fly as we go. But if Wendell starts, I think that minutes upside, I would definitely be trending to get more of him. If he doesn't, I would probably be down on him because I still expect him to be pretty owned. It looks like he's already garnering quite a bit of ownership at the center position on FanDuel.
Does RJ Hampton see time tonight?
I would assume so. I mean, he's in, right?
Yeah. This is more, I mean, they traded for him. Does that mean he's better than what they currently have? I don't know.
I mean, I was trying to figure out what exactly went on. They basically split those point guard minutes, pulling this up. Chasson Randall, he played up to 27 minutes, was super ineffective in that time. Michael Carter-Williams, 28. He saw the 30% usage in that game. I like getting to Michael Carter-Williams a little bit. Obviously on FanDuel, you're going to get to him a little bit more. Harder to get up there on DraftKings. I don't know. Getting Wendell Carter into the mix really kind of puts a wrench in some of these other pieces. They don't project well already as it is. I think you're kind of like grabbing straws to try to force them in with all these other pieces. There are some unknowns there. So maybe taking a shot on somebody like RJ Hampton, who's a little bit cheaper, sitting at 3,500. Sure. But Alex doesn't have him playing much, have him playing many minutes. I don't have him playing many minutes. I would probably go more towards, if I had to play anybody on the Magic right now, Wendell Carter Jr. because of those minutes upside that could exist. But I would want to see him starting, and then Michael Carter-Williams on FanDuel. Otherwise, it's kind of a stay away. And I know they projected well and played well between Kem Birch and Chuma Okeke, but I just can't go there today with how many front court pieces they now have there that they can kind of mix and match around.
All right. I think that hits most of them. How do you feel on the Lakers side of things? And then we should have we'll hit Denver one more time, but we should have some time for some questions, talk a little no house advantage here. Let's see. Wanted to pull up my information here from Montrezl Harrell. In 400 minutes without Anthony Davis and LeBron James on the court this season, Harrell is averaging 1.27 fantasy points per minute. In the 4 games since LeBron was injured, Harrell has averaged 32.5 minutes, 21 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1.5 combined blocks and steals. I really like him tonight. Not a lot of designed plays for him, but he gets a lot of good energy, buckets, hustle, rebounds, stuff like that. So he's kind of like the consummate garbage man these days, but he's kind of everywhere. Wendell Carter Jr. is a good defender, but Harrell's game is not exactly attacking the basket. So I don't think that's going to impact him a lot. So he is my probably favorite play. Dennis Schroeder has been also very, very good on Yahoo. He's only 25. So if you're playing over there, he's kind of a must play in my opinion. 7,700 on FanDuel, 71 on DK. So this is a very winnable game for the Lakers. So I think they're going to be riding their main 4 or 5 guys not named Markieff Morris, because God only knows if he's going to feel like playing tonight. I say that as a damaged Washington Wizards fan. But I think anybody of the Kuzma, KCP, I think is fine. Just depends if he does anything while he's on the court. Schroeder, Harrell, and do you put Talen Horton-Tucker in there, or do you draw that line? I don't know what they're doing with him these days.
Well, I know that he was the guy who was at the top of the boom bust tool over on DraftKings when it last updated. I'm waiting for that new update to come through, but you were getting some massive leverage on him. They extended.
Wait, good or bad?
Good.
Oh, on the good side.
Leverage.
Okay.
Yeah, on the good side. He played up to 32 minutes. He did pretty much nothing with those. Put up, I guess, 15, 3, and 3. That's fine. For a guy that is now 5,700, it's not fine, but 32 minutes for a guy that we know can spike some usage and spike some upside. I do like taking a lot of shots on him over on DraftKings specifically, where he definitely projects out a little bit better for me. Going to any of these other Lakers, I mean, it's kind of what you'd expect. It's going to be Harrell. It's going to be Kuzma. We have to kind of look at KCP by default over on DraftKings, which I don't like doing. I just really, really don't like doing it. He's very reliant on other people creating shots for him. And Schroeder isn't necessarily that guy. And then Schroeder on DraftKings is probably the premium play that you're looking at over there, garnering the most ownership out of everybody on this team. But yeah, the Harrell thing I am very concerned about, just from the perspective of Marc Gasol is back, getting 15 minutes the last few games. I think that's enough to cut into his minutes ceiling that, yeah, he can get a lot done when he is on the court, but you're not paying the $6,500 that we were paying a week ago for him. You're paying premium, $7,400 on DraftKings, and he's garnering the most ownership at the entire position over on FanDuel. I'm lighter on him today than the field. I'm not getting up to the 26% or so that he is on FanDuel. That's just kind of a little bit high for me to pay. I'm kind of going the Jokic route because I think that there is enough value to be able to plug and play him in a majority of my lineups and be fine with it.
All right, get us up to, where are we? Get us up to 600 likes. I'll give you the updated ownership. By the time you get there, we'll probably have it. I just dropped 10 head-to-head DK contests in the $1 lobby there. Username EMac. Jordan Klein, come and get your love, buddy. Come and get your love, as the band Redbone said once upon a time. Let's see here. So here's my question mark, and I want to, and you mentioned the boom bust tool, and let me get that up. I think that's the best tool that we have on Awesemo. And today, the interesting one for me was when I was writing my article earlier, was talking about Michael Porter Jr. And he's in a similar spot. So on DK, the interesting thing here is he's coming in at 18% ownership. That's about the same rate as he is going to be in the optimal lineup. All right, numbers are going to be a little bit higher today because there's only 6 teams in our player pool. However, he has just a 5.5% chance of exceeding his boom score, which is 5x salary plus 10. So that would be 44 fantasy points. He has a 66% chance of failing to reach 5x salary. 2 out of 3 times he's not going to get the salary needed to pay off, or the points needed to pay off his salary, if you will, from even a minimal standpoint. We have Aaron Gordon now in the mix. He's someone I'm not excited about. And this is just, I like the boom bust tool because it often gives you a more clinical look. It does everything by math. It takes our biases out of things. I'd be thinking, oh, Michael Porter Jr. is just going to be a decent matchup for him. It's Atlanta. They play fast. Well, Atlanta's middle of the pack now on defense. They're actually okay at rebounding. And you forget that when Clint Capela is there, he changes up a lot of what's going on in the paint. So for me, that all signs point to Michael Porter Jr. As being one of our sort of bust candidates today. How do you feel about him? You mentioned a little bit about Aaron Gordon. I don't think it matters if he starts or if he comes off, but he's going to take some of his minutes. He's going to take some of Will Barton's minutes. Probably Paul Millsap sees the biggest hit from all of this. The guys that they dealt weren't really playing or were hurt, so we have to look at current rotation to see where they're going to come up with 28 or so minutes for Aaron Gordon. How do you want to approach Denver? Because even though they've added one player and he's a good player and he's kind of a Swiss Army knife player, it's going to muck up everybody, I think, but Jokic.
I think it's going to muck up everybody but Jokic. And I also think that we have no idea until we get that starting lineup, because there's a very good chance that Michael Porter Jr. comes out of the second unit. Like, I'm pretty sure that they're looking at a situation with him where you saw Millsap, Michael Porter Jr., Will Barton, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray start last game, which makes perfect sense there. Obviously, you're not going to start Dozier, Campazzo, Green, Najee. They were playing limited minutes. Najee's just out of the rotation, so write him off. J. Michael Green, maybe about 10 minutes, write him off. PJ Dozier, write him off. you're basically looking at 6 playable pieces between, and Millsap is the guy that I think could end up starting. Why would you want to bring Millsap off the bench? Like, that's the thing that I'm thinking about, where it's like, I think Michael Porter Jr. is in a fine spot so long as he's not starting. I don't want to see him in the starting unit. I want to go the direction of Aaron Gordon, more so on this slate, because I think that there's just a little bit more unknown that exists there. Michael Porter Jr., if he's not defending well, can get ran off the court probably more frequently because Aaron Gordon gets inserted, is a decent enough defender. I think that that's kind of going to be the way that Malone treats this. And so I think Millsap's going to end up starting alongside Gordon. That's just a guess, but I think that definitely caps the ceiling of the 40 minutes that we saw last time out of Michael Porter Jr. I think already you were looking at around 32 minutes or so for him. Right now we've got him at 31 and a half. I'm probably going to be trending a little bit lower on that because I don't believe that he's going to start. I think it'll be Millsap alongside him. What is going on? What's going on?
Oh, I'm a Tulsa dog is tracking how many times I'm on the over under for my 13 and a half chuckles. And now he's making me laugh, I think intentionally, because I was falling off the pace there. He said, EMac said Redbone. Maybe Washington should rename their team the Washington Redboners. Pause.
Oh, man. I'm honestly speechless. And that's hard for me. It's hard for me to not talk. So I don't really know.
If you're not talking, I've got something to say.
Please
Starting
go.
9. That's
Go
the
ahead.
promo code for Awesemo. $9 for the first 9 days of Awesemo NBA content, or probably MLB content. I'm talking NBA right now. We're going to be doing double duty. We have 1/3 of the season left for NBA regular season when baseball goes out for first pitch there on April 1st. So this is going to be rather exciting. So for $9 using the promo code starting9, that's starting9 with the numeral 9, this will give you access to everything we have for MLB, including player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, which is phenomenal for baseball, the lineup builder, and of course the premium Slack channel. This is good through April 9th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo today. I love baseball. My favorite thing. Are you going to do baseball content, or are you kind of sticking with the NBA?
Doing baseball. Yeah.
Are you?
Baseball. I'm doing the golf show
here
on Tuesday with it'll be Ben Raza and I. So I'm trying to just stay versatile. Just trying to head on a swivel all the time.
All right. Are you ready for money time? For Chris Fags. He did say I could borrow this. Yeah. It is the time. It is money time. Yada yada yada. Money time. All right. Top 5 at each for each site. This is 3 minutes old. Pascal Siakam, 52% on DK. Fred VanVleet, 52%. Gary Trent Jr., 42. OG Anunoby, 37. Dennis Schroeder, 35. Bonus, Kyle Kuzma, 32. Over on FanDuel, Fred Van Elite is going to be on 2/3 of all lineups. Pascal Siakam, 60%. Trey Young enters the fray, 41%. Kyle Kuzma, 37. Dame Lillard, 36. Aaron Gordon at 3,600 is your bonus pick. He is at 35. On Yahoo, you have Fred VanVleet, 62. Pascal Siakam, 53. Dennis Schroeder on half the roster spots. OG Anunoby, 44. Kuzma, 37. Trey Young, 35.
Sounds
good.
about right.
About this kind of the core.
Right. I just hate the fact I just was all over the Raptors. I was way over top. And I never do that in the early games. I'm almost always kind of waiting for something to break. But on a 3-gamer,
unless
you
you
can't
play
do it.
somebody in the last game. Come on. This is the chat will tell you this.
All right.
You
I got
don't
the
have
starting
somebody
lineup
on your
right.
roster for the last game.
Raptors will start Van Vliet, Gary Trent, and Anunoby, Siakam, and Baines. So they brought Baines and slipped him into the 5, which made a lot of sense.
Does that move the needle on Baines at all for you?
No, I might get a little bit on DK. We'll see. I'll let you know here in 2 seconds as I plug that into verify and click. We'll find out. I'm getting like 4%.
Oh,
wait. Whoa. Wait, hold up. I'm getting way more than that.
Wow. That
okay.
Caught you off guard.
Yeah, no. Okay. So if you plug him in for 20 minutes, if you're plugging Aaron Baines in for 20 minutes on DK, which I just did, he's 3,500. I'm getting to a lot of him. Like an uncomfortable number. I'm going to have to cut down on it.
Is this a number you want to talk about at parties, or do you keep this one to yourself?
No, I'm shy. Okay.
Do you want Aaron Baines on the wall? Do you need Aaron Baines on that wall?
You need Aaron Baines on that wall. Yeah, 45%. There it is. It's not
oh boy, that's a big one.
I don't like it. I might need to come down on it a little bit. I did expect him to start, but now that comes out a little bit later, you're getting another piece of value. I mean, 3,500. Would you rather go to him or would you rather pay more for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? That's really the way to think about it. And when I think about it that way, I'm like, I want more Aaron Baines.
I feel like Hannibal Lecter and Clarice when he asks, "Are the lambs still screaming?" I don't want to make that choice. Those are scary choices. It puts the lotion in the basket or it gets the hose.
I thought I was the funny voice guy. Oh, no. Oh, no.
But your funny voices are happy. They're happy-go-lucky funny voices.
Oh, thank you.
All right. We have 20 minutes left. I want to remind you, all of our shows, with the exception of Live Before Lock, are on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Oh, with the exception of the game show or the game plan, which is behind the paywall. Tomorrow it's going to be Steve the Colts, multi-million-dollar winner in DFS. Steve Buzzard, you guys know him as the Colts with a Z out there on DFS. He crushes showdown slates, NFL, you name it. He is all over it. He's going to be breaking down his process tomorrow and any questions you have. So it's a live video chat, and you type in the questions, but you can see him. He'll share his screen and do all of that. Definitely want to check that out. That's one of the offerings we have behind the paywall. Sean's on also does some stuff there, and of course Alex Baker does them, and of course T McBee is on Saturdays. So as we get ready for MLB, you're going to want to check that out as well. Promo code starting9. All right, did you roster Aaron Baines? T McBee says
yes, I did.
You're goddamn right. I did. He was doing a little.
I didn't look at that until just now. It's all right. Man.
Is this the code red?
Did you order the code red?
Why the two orders? All right.
Some people live in a world. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we're not going to do that.
But we could. Let's see here. What about Malachi Flynn? How are you feeling about him now that you've had a moment to digest?
I think if you're taking a couple darts and you want to really stomach it, it's hard to really screw up at 3K on DK. I'm getting to like 12%, and I'm okay with that. I don't love it, but also he's 3K. So if I'm correct about that in a couple spots, I don't see him garnering any ownership as we're getting up to lock here. I'm going to keep refreshing. This is just kind of one of those situations where I'm waiting for ownership to update like 5-10 minutes before, because if Malachi Flynn gets up to 10%, just get me off the train immediately. But right now I would be fine getting to just a little into double digits. FanDuel, you don't need to do it.
All right. Let's see here. We have a question from Anthony Izzo in the premium Slack chat. Gary Trent or THT for FanDuel cash?
For FanDuel cash.
And while you're thinking about that, the interesting thing here is projections have gone up about 15 points from where they were before the Kyle Lowry news. So that just shows what kind of value opens up with different things here. They were running about 256, 258 on DK. Now they're at 270, 272. If you run the unencumbered crunches.
Yeah, that would explain why I'm getting infinity of them. Someone just said, did you get 100% Baines? No, I did not get 100% Baines. I got some Baines. I'm probably going to get
If you don't put a
Baines.
Cap on it, you get 100% Baines.
I bet you don't. If you literally plug and play it with no randomness and one unique, yeah, you're going to get probably close to it because he's 3,500 on DraftKings. FanDuel, again, there's the opportunity cost of having centers with actual upside on this slate. We've seen Harold get there quite a few times here, Nikola Jokic, but I would say that I like him more than taking shots on Nurkic. I would rather go the direction of Baines for sure. I would say they're pretty much close to the same projection there. I'm curious what I'm going to end up getting for Baines over on FanDuel. But what was the question again? It was THT and who for FanDuel cash?
Oh, you make me go back and look at it.
I'm so sorry. Well,
THT
it had to be
Gary Trent Jr.
If you're going between those two, I would probably lean on the side of THT. Just a slightly better projection with Alex too, but Gary Trent is the more owned of the two. So maybe Gary Trent, if you're just trying to jam in the highest projected, but I think you got to figure out a way to play Fred VanVleet and CJ McCollum together. I would probably figure that out. And again, I'm not playing cash, so I don't want to answer that for you, but I would probably be leaning on those two being my shooting guards no matter what.
All right. Let's see here. No House Advantage. Check them out. Going to get a little overlaid there. That's intentional. They are trying to use that as a marketing tool. Again, they've got 10 questions tonight. We have the projections for free, as well as we've even done the heavy lifting and run out a couple hundred optimal lineups for you to choose from. Makes all the heavy lifting go away. It's not quite printing cash, but it's definitely giving you a leg up on the other players that are not aware that we're giving away the free projections, and they are not being covered by the other DFS sites at this time. So check them out. Use the promo code Awesemo with your first deposit. They will match you up to $20. A Dean would like to say on a super chat, thoughts on Roy Hibbert for DK Cash. I will say, can you remember a guy that has fallen off the cliff farther from a guy who used to be the most amazing rim protector to not one, but two different all-star appearances while he was with the Indiana Pacers to completely being run out of the league within 2 years of that?
Yeah, he was unbelievable at Georgetown. That's where I remember him. I remember him his college days more than I do the NBA. But yeah, he was just a big dude. He was well over 7 foot, I believe. And yeah, he ran out. By the way, I just want you to go to DraftKings and look at Malachi Flynn's ownership. Just do that for me. Just take a look. It's worth it. I'll stall for time as you go.
25%?
What planet are we on? Okay. Now I'm a little nervous. Now this is absurd. So this is kind of a talking point for this entire slate, is figuring out Raptors. So I'm near, I don't lock button many people ever, but I'm near lock button numbers of FVV and Siakam. That's kind of a given. Figuring out what to do with these other pieces. I mean, I did not expect to see that happen. Not that I was thinking I was being sneaky. He obviously comes into play, but that's a large ownership number for a guy. Again, he's 3K. He can't like completely burn you. So I understand why the ownership is flooding there, but I would rather get over the field on Baines and under on Malachi Flynn at this point in time.
Mr. Moneybags, getting his money time question in, says, please talk me out of playing Snell as a cheap small forward on DraftKings single entry. Is there a pivot you like in that range? He is 3,700. He was in my shell cash lineup. I don't need him anymore because I'm doing a variety of other things. For those of you playing against me in cash, you will be seeing Fred VanVleet, Jokic, Harrell, probably Siakam. Tony Snell was in my third cash lineup.
You should be playing minimum 3 up to 5 Raptors.
Yeah.
In cash.
Well, I'm not going to tell him everything.
I'm just saying that's what you're supposed to do. Oh, Jordan's going over. He's just going to wreck you today. He's going to wreck you he wants you on that dollar. Needs you. Okay.
Malachi Flynn, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Pascal Siakam, Nikola Jokic, KCP, Bogdanovic, and Montrezl Harrell. There we go. That's my cash lineup.
There you go. Report him.
Ever say I didn't give anything.
There you go. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
We got
13 minutes here.
Question.
I'm going to get my shells in here quick, and then we'll just fire up questions because, oh man, this Malachi Flynn thing, I did not expect his ownership to get up to that kind of a number. This is making me question everything I believe in. What has Alex got his minutes at? Yeah, it's right where I was going to put him at 20 minutes. That makes him viable at 3K for sure. But, I don't want the decision point of my entire night to be revolved around what a 3K Malachi Flynn is going to do on this slate. I think you got to just kind of like get to the field maybe and cap it and live with it. But I hate doing that. I just hate it.
All right, for the Tony Snell question. I don't think you can. We don't have to.
You don't need him anymore.
You make a 2v2 and either use Baines or Malachi or KCP. Those are the guys that can get over 20 fantasy points. I don't know that Tony Snell can.
Yeah.
Well, he can.
You have too many guys now that are under 35. I mean, Baines is 3,500. Like Aaron Baines is starting 3,500. I don't know what those minutes are necessarily going to get to, but it's still a guy who is a 0.82 fantasy point per minute guy, 16%. I would rather go with him. But like, I think in cash, Malachi Flynn, if he's going to be up to 25%, he's 3K playing over 20 minutes. I think he's the guy you go to in this spot now. You can then use 2 centers if you really want to go that route. If you like Harrell and Jokic going that direction, he just opens up a lot at 3K. I think you kind of have to at this point if he's going to be that owned.
Sorry, I'm
It
just
depends.
reading it.
Gary Trent still isn't like the greatest.
Yeah, Gary Trent he makes me nervous because he doesn't do a lot besides just stroke the 3-pointers, which he does very, very well. But
Craig, with Flynn, you will win. Hashtag.
oh, there we go. All right.
What?
How
I don't think he
argue with
refers to
that
Johnny
logic?
Flynn because that's my Timberwolves' worst pick of all time and makes me sad. And I remember like celebrating. I was like, we got Johnny Flynn because he was good for like a day at Syracuse. I hate everything about basketball. It's fine.
All right. Okay. My Slack is not working now. I hate when you haven't scrolled to keep a lot of the new information and it sticks. All right, so I'm down to the new ones. Okay, good. No new questions there. Mr. Moneyback is already playing Baines and KCP. I think you got to work in Malachi.
Yep.
And you can potentially boot KCP out of there or play them all. Doesn't matter. What about Alex Caruso? We didn't mention him tonight. We're legally obligated since he looks like the boss man.
Well, he is the boss man.
That is true.
He goes into the phone booth every night and comes out, and there he is. Fine, but why would you, 3,800? You're just trying to get different at this point in time. Not that Malachi Flynn is a better play than that on FanDuel. He's 300 cheaper, getting up to 10%. That's just too high. I'm not going to touch Malachi Flynn on FanDuel. What is Caruso's price on DraftKings? Because now you're looking at like a no man's land. Even on a 3-game slate, if you get off of the Raptors in any way, shape, or form, you're different. I don't really want to go there. He's just going to be over around 12% right now. No, I don't want 12% Caruso. 4,400. I'm going to have 0%.
All right. That doesn't sound like being much of a team player here. This will be reflected in your paycheck.
Okay. Well, we can have the talk afterwards.
All right. I'm gonna upload my lineup because this is where bad things happen. So let's put in this questions lineup at least.
Yeah, you go to town for a second. I'm just gonna kind of sit here. I'm waiting for everything to update, and then I'll go through my own party at Boucher's tonight. I mean, if there was a spot they're gonna come in and he's gonna be an offensive dude. Like there's a larger ceiling for like Lowry doesn't directly affect him in the rotation, but certainly it affects him in terms of they need offense on the basketball floor and he can provide it. Right now we're getting right around like 19, 20 minutes, I would say, of him. I'd be fine getting to a little bit at 5,300 on FanDuel is probably too much for me to want to go there, but you're looking at a large minutes range that this could end up being. 5,400 on DraftKings where you play two centers. I'm going to get to a little bit there.
How much Jokic are you ending up with on FanDuel?
I was at 40% last run. I'm going to click here. I've got 171 lineups there. We'll let you know. I am at 34% right now. Not as high as I was expecting it to get up to, but I can kind of manually nuke it up a little bit. But I'm starting to get a little bit of Baines down there at 3,900. I'm getting right around 15%. That's eating into it a little bit. I was right around the field. I'm actually going to be under for sure, I think, on Wendell Carter now at 12%. I'm getting to around 8. I'm gonna manually get him back up because he needs to be around 40% for me at least. Yeah.
In tournaments, would you set a limit on number of Raptors in your lineup?
No, I honestly, it's just that good of a spot. And you, I think, are capping your upside when there is just an unbelievable amount of opportunity that exists for Fred VanVleet, Siakam, and Anunoby. Those are the three that really stand out, that it's almost like they kind of have the unabated run at all the usage that they want. Malachi Flynn and Baines are kind of darts that are kind of required to take because they're cheap on both sites. And I think that they open up a lot. Malachi Flynn, again, I don't want to play on FanDuel because I think point guard getting off of like Trey Young, Lillard, Schroeder, Michael Carter-Williams, guys with axe, the opportunity cost of the position is just way, way, way too high. So I took him out of my player pool over there. And I'm going to kind of live with the result of that. But at 3K on DraftKings, I would probably allow, I don't ever usually allow up to 5. I could probably get to 5 Raptors. I think in cash, it's super viable. I think it makes sense even in tournaments to get to 4 or 5 of these guys. I don't think I'm going to make any rules on it. I'm going to crunch out right now. We got 6 minutes. I'm going to hit another DraftKings update. I'm getting to, if I don't cap it at the 4, I'm getting to how many of my lineups with this many Raptors, because you can go to team stack. I'm getting a like 10% 5-man stacks on Toronto. So I'm fine with that number.
Okay.
Is it probably too high? Yeah, but you've got 2 guys that are down at 3K. I think I might actually make a rule. I want to get to 4, but I'm only going to have one of either Baines or Malachi in it. And I'm probably only going to get to 3 in most of those then. And then I'm also going to make a rule quick for Boucher and Baines not to intersect, because I think that that's kind of a direct negative. Like they're both like 3,500 is with Baines along with Boucher, whatever. But like Boucher needs to get on top of a crazy amount of minutes. 1.2 DraftKings point per minute guide, say 20 plus at 5,300, 5,400. He can get there for you.
Those are good rules. I just created them as well. Thank you.
Word. You're welcome.
Yeah, that really nukes it down on how much Flynn you're going to get. That's helpful.
And that's kind of a good thing. I think 25% is a large number. I would play Flynn in cash. I'm not playing cash, so I'm just going to be under on him. And it's gross because at the beginning I'm like, hey, the ownership isn't going to get there. Oh, it got there all right.
All right. Well, who's the guy that terrifies me the most that I don't have enough of?
Malachi Flynn is now it for me, which is
that you have too much of.
To say. No, the guy that I have that I don't have enough of that could kill me. That's the guy.
Gotcha. I've got 60% Jokic. I'm going to go down to 50 when I make some more lineups here, but that feels about right.
And really all that matters is that you get the pieces in from this Toronto game that you want first, and then we can kind of adjust accordingly. We have 2 hours to react to starting lineups. So everybody just make sure that you get your Raptor allocations in correctly. I really think that there's 6 guys to really be looking at in this situation. I think you probably want to definitely cap it at 5. That's probably too many even in tournaments at this point in time. Although I was getting to a couple when I didn't cap it. I just capped it at 4 now. And I think you want to have that rule to make sure that you're only getting one of Baines or Boucher, because Boucher is not going to go off if Baines gets the run.
All righty. Let's see. Did the lineups here. Let's see what. Oof. There's some bad ones that came out.
This is really absurd, actually, what I'm looking at right now. How much Otto Porter are you getting to? Said his name.
I made myself get 10%, but I think there's just too much goodness here on Toronto that I just don't need to get there anymore.
Yep, I think so too. I think on FanDuel where you can only play 4 Raptors, it's kind of a deal where you're playing 2 of them, and small forward. Like I think Anunoby is the least appealing of the 3. 6,700 is a big number for him there. Obviously can get on top of it, but still hasn't exceeded 40 fantasy points in his last 4 on FanDuel. I probably could be okay.
God, I'm going 80% Gary Trent Jr. Wow. I can't see your face.
EMac 2024.
How much are you going?
I had 18%. I'm going to get to more now.
Well, you know what? We only live.
I mean, I have 100% Fred VanVleet. So there's that. So that's going to mix up what I'm going to be doing in other places for sure. Because you got to get different in other places. I'm going to live with the result of that. Siakam here. We got 2 minutes too, by the way. Nah, it'll pay off. Okay, cool. I'm happy to win money today. I hope all of you guys win money today too. I'm starting to realize is like the further I get into this, it's way more fun when we all win together and actually come up with good stuff. It's really kind of crappy if I hit on something that's random that not everybody else is on board with. I know that sounds weird, but I do enjoy it so much more when I get the screenshots, when people DM me. I enjoy that way more than I thought I would. I was like, oh, well, this is, I'll just tell them what I'm doing and it's whatever. But like, no, I legitimately want you guys all to smash tonight too.
Yeah, we had some nice showings there on Super Draft as well. And reminder, No House Advantage, definitely the place you guys want to be if you want to get in on some overlay. That is promo code Awesemo. We'll get you $20 deposit match. And we are 1 minute away from lock. By the time you're hearing this, we probably will be locked. I got my lineups in, shockingly.
Oh, guys.
I didn't know that was possible, but
good luck to everybody tonight because this thing got really fun. I know that, if you weren't doing a show, or if I wasn't doing a show, this would be probably an easier process of putting together what happened. But I found it very interesting Malachi Flynn got to that kind of ownership.
Yeah.
I think that undercutting him on DraftKings and not having him on FanDuel now, I feel pretty comfortable with that. Would I be surprised if he ended up going off? No, but I think that with enough other pieces around 3,500 that are now going to be losing some ownership, even like a guy like KCP, I think that's going to Malachi Flynn because people would much rather play the 3K guy rather than going to like Caruso or something as well over on DraftKings. But such is life. I think that that's kind of going to be the guy I need to have not go off now. I'm so curious to see what his ownership is in the $20.
All right, 2,000 of you left. Let's see what we get on that ownership if you want to look it up. Hit that like button on the way out. We do appreciate it. We're doing this all over again tomorrow. We have all sorts of content for you guys just on our YouTube channel alone. We start at 6:30 in the morning with The Process and Josh Engelman. 10 o'clock, we have Adam Kaufman and Nerd Ask Greg on the NBA Strategy Show. 2 o'clock, we have PGA First Look with Jason. Are you doing this one tomorrow?
I am doing the late slate show tomorrow. Yeah.
No, the golf. You're doing golf on Tuesday.
Tip off. Yep. Doing golf on Tuesday. I've been doing it on Mondays, but I'm filling in on Tuesday.
Okay. You had me confused there. So that'll be Jason and Jeff as usual. Yep. NHL Strategy Show. You got Jay Curry and T McBee, 3 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Also in the premium only channel, we have Steve Buzzard, AKA DeColts, dropping some knowledge there. You can ask him how he does certain things, how he handles different situations, and what he's going to be doing on short slates, on big slates, on Showdown, on whatever for MLB, for NBA. You guys got it. Then 4 o'clock, the tip off that is with Kayla, Chris Baggs, and Eric Lindquist. The deeper dive with Lofty and Adam. Live before lock with Spags and Engelman, and then the late slate swap and sweat show with Spags and Eric Lindquist because I am doing a baseball draft. So there we go.
Ooh. You're ready to rock, aren't you? Oh my gosh, Malachi Flynn only got to 12.6%.
Oh boy. Yeah. Where did you end up? Let's say RIP me.
4.
Are you happy or sad?
No. What do you think I look like right now?
I have 30% because
it's okay. I didn't think it was going to get to 25, but I thought it could get to around 15, 20 and that. So 12.6, because that was like the number that I was getting to on that first crunch. So that makes sense. I should have probably just rolled with it, but hey, you got to make a stand somewhere. I guess I'm making it against a 3K guy that I liked at the beginning of the show. Is now I'm cheering against. What a time to be alive. I love DFS.
Siakam, 78%, OG, 70, Fred VanVleet, 64, Gary Trent, 63, KCP, 60, Dennis Schroeder, 55, Jokic, 52, Kuzma, 50, Harrell, 48, Taylor Horton Tucker, 34, Baines, 30, Malachi Flynn, 30. That rule capped them for me. That was a good rule.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I think to think about it. You either make a key and you build it around that way, but I don't really have time to do that on a show. So we did the quick version, which is nice.
First Orlando Magic player is Michael Carter-Williams at 25. First Atlanta player is
somebody said who TF is Flynn. That's fantastic.
Well, his name's not, it looks like Malachi, but it's pronounced Malachi. So enjoy it.
Who would ever say Malachi?
There are people that don't know Malachi how it's
okay. I'm not the greatest pronunciator of things when I read them off of a screen as well. So the
pronunciator.
It's fair. Yeah.
All right, let's get on out of here, gamers. Get us up to 700 likes. We'd appreciate that. We're 21 away. There's still 1,700 of you watching. Hat tip to No House Advantage for hooking us up and enabling us to bring you back-to-back NBA shows on a Sunday night. Just think about that for a moment, gamers. With that, good luck.
Winpack's very happy. Michigan won by 1 million. Yeah.